The United Nations Security Council is due to meet tomorrow after Palestinian group Hamas launched the biggest attack on Israel in years. SABC News correspondent Mia Alberti is in Beirut in Lebanon and joins me now. Mia, good evening. What has the reaction been in Lebanon following the attacks today?
Well, people in Lebanon are afraid that this could eventually spill out into their country. We have seen Lebanese people are always at the risk of a further conflict escalating to Lebanon because of the presence of groups like Hamas factions in southern Lebanon, like Hezbollah. For example, we have heard from Hezbollah earlier today reacting to a call to arms from Hamas in Palestine, and we heard Hezbollah saying that it was in direct contact with these Palestinian leaderships, both abroad and at home here in Lebanon, meaning that they could be coordinating a retaliatory attack, which has happened in the last few years and months whenever there was a conflict being played out in Gaza, especially when it involves the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So we could still be seeing that, and people here are apprehensive that that might happen. But we are also seeing a lot of solidarity. There's a lot of people in Lebanon who still remember living through the Israeli occupation, through the civil war, and so there's a lot of solidarity, especially from the Muslim community here with the Palestinians. But there's also a warning of caution. We have heard some politicians from Christian parties saying, for example, what happens in Gaza should stay in Gaza, urging these groups here in Lebanon not to engage in this conflict, because that would mean that Israel would probably then retaliate against Lebanon, sending rockets into Lebanese territory, which could force Lebanese forces to then respond, and then it would be a full-on escalation of violence between these two states, which Lebanon cannot afford at a time that is going through a huge economic crisis.
Mia, look, it seems that these attacks came as a big surprise. What's the latest that you're hearing from Israel? And what are the neighbors like Syria saying? I mean, we understand that Israel has quite a formidable intelligence there, and we're all wondering, how did they miss it?
Exactly, that's the big question, and that's what makes this incident so different from others that happened maybe 50 years ago with the Yom Kippur, because there was not this kind of technology. Israel didn't have the Iron Dome like it has now. It didn't have the amount of soldiers it has now. And so what happened now? I mean, we have been seeing pictures of Israeli soldiers being captured still in their, not even in their uniform. So it just shows how unprepared or surprised the Israeli forces were of this attack. And the question is how, with so much intel, I don't know how to answer you this, and I don't think anyone can. I think it's just that they were not prepared for an organized military offensive like this one. I think the Israeli military is mostly accustomed to reacting to something and responding to small, let's call them small, although maybe that's not the best word, but not something on this scale, not something certainly in Israeli territory. So that might explain the lack of preparedness, because most of the conflicts we see happening in Israel-Palestine happen where? In Gaza, in West Bank. They're not happening in Israeli cities like it is happening today. So we are seeing this kind of unpreparedness, and of course this is not something that either the Palestinians or the Israelis or nobody is thinking at the moment, but this is a huge political blow to someone like the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that has made security one of his main campaign and power anthems, and now here we have Israel having the biggest attack it has ever had in 50 years, and maybe even worse, because we're seeing this case of people being kidnapped and brought into Palestinian territories. So of course for the Israeli Prime Minister, this is also, after all of this is resolved, which will take a while, he will also have to face a political battle, a political internal crisis at home.
And Mia, I mean, what is the Lebanese government saying? Are they on high alert at this stage?
Well, the Lebanese government is not saying anything, literally not getting involved. We're not hearing any official statements either from the Prime Minister or the Foreign Minister like we are seeing from other Arabic countries in the region. We have seen some members of parliament going on social media, but not really official government stance, and that is because I think they are waiting to see what happens, because if there is an attack coming from Lebanon, then they will have to take a stance. But until now, I think they are trying to remain as neutral as possible, not to not put any more fuel in the fire here on this side of the border that could escalate into an attack, for example. So they are keeping their cards very close to their chest. We do know that earlier this afternoon we saw a number of Hezbollah fighters going to the border region. Between the border there is a road next that follows all of the border, and there we saw some of these Hezbollah fighters carrying flags and celebrating, and the Israeli fighters from the other side responded with some bullets. According to Hezbollah newspaper, 4 bullets were fired against these people. Nobody was hurt, but the Lebanese army has cordoned off this little stretch of land between the border to avoid any small spark that could turn into a conflict. This is just an example. Even this small stretch of land, and the United Nations interim force that works between the border between the two countries have also strengthened their staff, their contingent in the area to avoid any scuffles that could spark into something at this very, very sensitive moment.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for that update, Mia Alberti, the SABC News correspondent in Lebanon.